becoming more and more convinced there's going to be a group of students that are basically unpredictable. Right? We're emphasizing indicators and prediction and actions. I think it's going to be left with a group of kids that are not predictable, both because kids change, and so they change from being 17 or 16 years old to being 19 years old to being 21 years old. And also, the unpredictability is coming from, I would say, variation and rapid change in the youth labor market. It's not the same everywhere, and it's not the same as it was 5 years ago, and it'll probably be different 5 years from now. And that makes it hard, but what is the right guidance and pathways for kids that are going to do something other than the 4-year option, which is that really we should make sure all kids have access to that, and all kids are ready for that, and all kids, that's expanded. But we know that in the near term, we're not going to be 100% of people going to college for 4 years, right? And there's pathways to adult success outside of that. But who that's for and who in that group needs what supports to succeed, I think is the most difficult area to predict. And from our early initial attempts with various districts and states, we still can't get decent indicators on who succeeds in a 2-year institution. You will find that in 2-year institutions, there are some kids that go there and they have a 3.0 in high school. They could have gone anywhere, but they went there for various circumstances. You will find other kids that actually succeeded in the 2-year program that had a 1.9 GPA in high school, and you would never predict that they were going to make it, but they do. And you have a bunch of kids in the middle between that actually enroll but don't make it. And that makes it very unpredictable, right? And then what is the best outcome, right? We know that in some certain circumstances, kids that do better had much shorter certificate programs because they were highly aligned with a rich source of local jobs that had a demand, that build a skill set in a short period of time, and they were very successful. So if you look at some communities, which kids are the most successful in their early 20s? It's actually the kids that went to short-term certificate programs that were highly aligned with local labor market needs. But many of those short-term certificate programs are dead ends, right? So that's like, so that all puts huge premium on navigation, which gets us to our thing today. But highly informed navigators. And right now, we don't have many highly informed navigators in the K-12 or even the post-secondary system. Like every year, right, you got, in any local way, you have hundreds of kids. Every year, hundreds of kids that need good navigation, and we have very few navigators. So to me, that's that question, how do we build those navigators? And then when you think about the level of need of that, it becomes crystal clear the school system alone is never going to do it, right? And partly what someone over here said, that like, I think it was our West Georgia friend, is that the structures of those schools were built for a different purpose, and they don't change quickly, right? So our thing of most, like on average, one counselor for 500 kids in a high school wasn't built because people were insane, or there was no money, or it was the best they could do. If you look back in the history books, that was, at that point, when they were scaling secondary schooling to everybody, most people ended after high school. And if most people were going to end after high school, what do you need a counselor for? What am I counseling you? Like, your pathway is set, you don't need advice. That counselor was left with 100 kids that might go on somewhere else. And that seemed like a reasonable ratio, right? Of the 500, only 100 will need the counselor, right? Now all 500 need that counselor, and it's still the one counselor. And that's so ingrained in our systems and our funding models that even if we wanted to do that, that was the best way to say we were going to change that by order of magnitude. Like, we know that's not going to happen in any real world really quickly. So it's where we get those other navigators, which gets us to the collaboration. And how do we build systems that bring in other people from other sectors that are informed enough to be good navigators, which I think sets us up for collaboration and navigation.
It does set us up, and thank you very much. It's always useful to remember that around the 1900s, all of about 3% of the population went to college. And it gradually rose to 40% by the 50s. So we are really undergoing a complete sea change in America in terms of who we're educating, what we're educating folks for. So Now we're going on to collaborations, and I will say that your agenda says we were going to count off the groups, and I think why don't we just stay in these groups, from after lunch we'll shift groups. That would introduce 10 minutes of confusion. Let's just go ahead.
Navigator.
You all could appoint your own navigator at each table incidentally, a note taker, a reporter out, somebody to just guide you all. So you just choose that as we get into discussion. So, given what we've heard and what knowledge and expertise you bring, what collaborations are most vital? I'm going to ask you that. Where do you recommend starting? And that's going to be a pervasive theme today. As we said a few minutes ago, can't all jump in, right? To everything at once. Pretty difficult. So where do we start? What would your recommendations be on that? And then, what opportunities and hurdles can you encounter? Which you will, right? Anybody in the room not encounter hurdles?
You hit the clicker accidentally. Just want to go back and sorry.
There we are. In your packet, you do have two handouts, collaborations and navigation systems. And I believe these might have been emailed to you with the request that you read them in advance. But I'm remembering from the other two groups, that one person out of 20 had read them, and in the other it might have been two. So I'm going to suggest that for those of you who didn't have the opportunity, you glance at them. And I would say the first one to look at is the navigation systems. Collaboration?
Well, it's close, but the next activity is heavily over that.
Yeah. Look at navigation.
Does that say database collaborations at the top?
Database collaborations is one, and the other is navigation. Yes.
Right, so look at the navigation systems one, mostly for this activity. And what we're really trying to do in a minute to talk about is like, again, this would get like, we're really like in our teaching mode now. Like, many of you have experience with collaborations. You've learned things along the way, what worked, what didn't work. One of the challenges of thinking through it and struggled to write a brief thing on, so that's why we had to bring it to the experts, is like, how do you give people advice on where to get started without either being so generic that it's like, okay, that's like basic human sense, or being so directive, like follow the collective impact model, you know, and here it is. What would be the sort of sage advice if you were to boil it down to a couple pages you would give based on your experiences? How do you get started with these collaborations, specifically around this idea of building navigation supports and pathways to post-secondary adult success? I mean, not in general collaborations for that purpose.